Hi, today I'm here to share with you how my dream of creating beautiful butterflies, realistic butterflies out of leather finally became a reality and how it really helped to rekindle my passion and make it soar to new heights. Again, if you don't know who I am, my name is Jan Hibbert and I've been creating handmade leather goods since 1977. But it wasn't until 2020 when I got my Glowforge that I gained the ability to now create the butterflies that I desired. Last week, I shared a video about the problems I had getting the Glowforge set up and everything. So this week is more about actually starting to create the patterns. So once I had the Glowforge and it was all set up and ready to go, you need to create patterns so it will know what pieces of something it needs to cut and what pieces of something it needs to engrave. And what most people use is called an SVG pattern. This was something I knew nothing about. And again, what it does, it breaks the pattern into layers so it knows this layer is going to be cut, this layer is going to be engraved, so forth, things like that. Well, there are a lot of programs out there that you can use to learn how to do SVG patterns and how to make them and stuff. And, I attempted to use some of the ones that were suggested. That was a whole new thing to learn. I tried a couple times and step-by-step tutorials, and my screen was never set up the way they did, and I didn't see the buttons they did, and, probably because it was done at a different date and time, and, whether they were done on an Apple and I'm using a PC, PC or something, I don't know. But in any event, it was different, and I could not figure it out. So it's like, do I spend days and months trying to figure out this new program, or do I just hem and haw it away how I usually do things? So I decided to just hem and haw away. So I started drawing butterflies. So some of the first ones I think I drew were either a tiger swallowtail, which is something we have around here, and a Luna moth. As a teacher, those are things we also raised and changed from the cocoon or the egg, in fact, into the butterfly and so forth. So we saw the complete life cycle. As a matter of fact, one of the books I use for reference here, I just noticed it is signed from some of my students, their family. It was given to me as a gift at the end of the year or whatever. And so I'm sure that doesn't show on the camera, but in any event, they signed it saying, it's a thank you gift. So that is a reference. So when I make my butterfly shapes, I am looking for realistic shapes. So here, I have the swallowtail butterfly, which is, something we do have around here and I would see in the yard. So I started drawing the patterns and so forth. And I tried different things. Now, first of all, I was drawing some of the patterns small. That was a mistake there because small, again, it's hard for the machine to pick up the detail. So what I learned as I went along, to make them a little bit bigger. I mean, this isn't real big. I can't even get it to show. This isn't real big, but I mean, it looks bigger on the screen, but that's, not as big as my hand. About the size of my palm, that size or bigger, because I can make it whatever size I want with the Glowforge. So however I want to make it, I can resize it and so forth. So it's easier to make the pattern to make sure it comes out. What I also learned is, again, and here's a Luna moth one. What I learned is to color code it. So now, because the outside lines and the interior lines are made in different colors, the machine can pick that up and you can tell it, to cut and engrave and so forth. So, but what you have to do is I have to scan it into the machine a certain way so it knows which it's going to do to which is something I'll show you a little bit later. So again, I still have trial and error with my patterns. Again, see some of the original ones I was drawing pretty small, and so that made it a little harder to get the detail. They are based on real butterflies. This is either what called the sunset moth or a Madagascar moth, which I actually do have mounted here. And of course, if you don't know, butterflies only live for about a week. So when they mount butterflies like this, they have lived their life and, they only live about a week after that. But I was a teacher for 30 years. So a lot of the books I had in my classroom are books I use for references and stuff, because I was into teaching kids a science thing. So it wasn't just, we're going to learn cutesy little things about caterpillars. We're going to see the whole life cycle and so forth and really learn the whole thing. So this was a book, it's about the alphabet, but at the back of it, it has the pictures of all the different types of butterflies and so forth. So I used a lot of those to draw my pictures and so forth. And so that's how I started with the patterns. Next, I'll show you what happens once I have the pattern made. Then I have to take the picture, scan it into the Glowforge, once the Glowforge has scanned it in, again, I have to do certain things to make sure it knows which to cut and which to engrave, and then I can go across, into the process of actually cutting it. So that will be coming up next. So now that I've made the pattern, now I need to come over to the Glowforge, which is right here in this corner. It is in a little greenhouse because it has to be heated, and it is winter here. It is a warmer day today, but because I have to have it heated, and because I'm trying to film now, I have to have the curtain here, the door wide open. So hopefully the Glowforge will work, because if it gets too cold, it will not work. So I've made a pattern. Again, here are some of the ones I had talked about before that I had made, and I placed it under the glass, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do this hair streak now. And again, this is based on a real butterfly. It's called the Great Purple Hairstreak over here. And so that is a butterfly I'm going to copy. So I have to place this under the thing here. Is this the one I want under it? The camera is about here, so I kind of want to get it centered on there, and I need to make sure it's, you know, it's flat, I should say. Then I have to go scan it. So actually I didn't get my Glowforge program going, so I'm going to do that now. Now that I'm signed into the app, I'm not sure what you see on the screen now. I have to put create new design. Yeah, I'm not sure. So now I'm over here next to my Glowforge, and I've placed my pattern underneath the glass there, and it is scanning. It will scan back over to my computer over here. And you can see the images on the computer. And what I have to do is I have to select the image that I want by, nope, see if I trace it and I have that word in it, it's going to trace that. And again, it doesn't let you have any mistakes. So now I've got to get it there. I don't have the word in there. So now I've got that. So now the trick is to get it to scan what I want and to cut what I want, engrave what I want. So if I click way over here, hopefully it's just going to pick up the outside lines, which it did, so that was successful. And now it's going to cut the pink lines, and the lines in the center, it will not cut. So now I have to come over here onto my screen, and it says place artwork, which I'm sure you can't really see. And I click that. Sorry, I'm trying to do this and move at the same time. I take the piece of paper out from under the glass. So now I have my pattern out. Now I have to come back over here, and I have to figure out where I want to place this. Now again, that was bigger than I obviously want. This is for like an earring or a necklace, so I'm going to make it smaller. And again, I'm really not sure what size. I do have to go over here to my settings, and I have to make sure I know what material it is, which I always use thick natural leather, which their thick leather and my thick leather are two different things. There's very different kinds of leather. All of this is eco-friendly, biodegradable leather, but there are different thicknesses. So for the jewelry, I use a 4 or 5 ounce leather, and for the barrettes, I use a thicker leather. And now I'm changing my settings. I do 163 for speed, and full power is what I set all my settings to for my leather. I don't mask it, which is sometimes is what they say to do, where you put paper underneath, or like tape it so that it doesn't like burn marks on the edges. But if I do that, you cannot get it off these little tiny shapes. So that takes twice as long. And really the burning on the edges doesn't do anything. It's going to be painted anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. Now, if I'm making earrings, again, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it. And this one is pretty symmetrical, so left and right. Like if I'm making earrings and the pattern's a little bit different on one side than the other, then I make them symmetrical or make them match and things like that. So then I place them. And again, this may be too big for an earring. I'm not really sure. I can make as many of as I want. I can make them different sizes. Again, I'm using one particular type of leather, so it has to be things that I want out of the same thickness. So again, I can copy this again. I can paste it. Now if I want to make it smaller, for, you know, to make it hanging earring, and then I'm going to copy that one, Paste it so I have 2 of those. So if I want to make a dangle earring, I have all the pieces and parts. And then again, I try. Now, see, the reason I don't do one pair together is because you never know how it's going to fit on the leather. See, now where it's, I don't know if you can see on that, it's making it a different color at one time. That means that it won't cut it. It has to be, it's too close to the edge, is what it was telling me there. So now I try to get these as close as I can together without touching and so forth. And then it will cut all these out. And so it's going to cut the 4 of those. So the next thing, I go over to the corner here and press ready print. Then I have to wait a few minutes and it will come up on the Glowforge. You can hear it making noises. It's scanning, and then it will tell me, it will say ready when it's ready to print there. So now I'm back at my computer, and again, it's going to be 13 minutes and 32 seconds to print those 4 little butterflies. So now I have to go back over to the Glowforge, and I press a magic button here, which is flashing. When this button is flashing, it means it's ready. So I push that. The laser will come out. I put the things way up in this corner because I'm trying to get as close to the edge as I can. And it will keep working. 2 minutes and 25 seconds approximately until it's finished cutting. Looks like these pieces are going to be a little bit big for necklaces maybe, or the biggest ones will be necklaces, centerpiece of a necklace. But they're definitely too big for earrings. The neck size is probably not too bad for a pair of earrings. So we'll see. Now the engraver is starting to cut. You can see the dark lines around the edges. Because the laser is kind of burning through the leather. But see, that really doesn't affect the pieces when they're done, when they're painted. And most of the edges of most butterflies are dark anyway, so it really does not make any difference as far as I'm concerned. So the cutting usually takes a minute or 2, not long. Now I'm over here at my workbench where I do my painting. I've cut out the little pieces. Again, just these little hair streaks I did. The back of them is going to be blue, so I have my paint, and I'm going to just paint the back of these a solid color fairly quickly. It helps to waterproof them kind of in the end and so forth. And the earring, obviously, an earring can show from the front to the back, so I paint both sides of the earrings. I have a piece of paper underneath me because I try not to get the paint on this granite table, because this is also where I do the carving, and to keep it nice and smooth. It is a solid piece of granite that's 4 inches thick, and weighs a ton. Oh, I don't know how much it weighs. It weighs a lot. I had to use our tractor to get it in here, and boy, just to slide it across the room was not easy. It definitely wasn't lifted, let's put it that way. And so I'm just quickly, and again, I think you can see a little bit of this with the camera. It's hard to get the camera in a place where you can see what I'm doing without me being in the way. The camera on my neck and stuff sometimes I think is, a little odd. And still, then I can't see what I'm doing, especially if I'm painting detail. So now once that's done, obviously I'm going to wash my brush. I'm going to let those dry for a minute. So the back of the earrings are painted. Now I'm ready to paint the front. I've got my colors out here. Again, I had my book here that I had written down the colors I used before. And then I also have the book that actually has the picture of the real butterfly. So I'm using that as a reference as I try to paint this. So I've got my paints here, and I just dip into them here and there and see what. That's too dark. And it's it's just kind of trial and error. The trick is to use a paint. I want the paint to be thin, because then it absorbs into the leather and it becomes permanent. So that's kind of the key. Leather is a very unique in that way. It has a lot of unique features. It really does. So it's kind of, again, it's funny because this is called the Great Purple Hairstreak, but it, in all honesty, is, and I can't get my book to stay to see my page, is according to this picture, it's more teal. But of course, the reason that is butterflies, depending on the light they're in, look different colors. You know, it depends on what's around them, the objects around them shining off, because their wings are made up of little tiny scales. And when the light reflects on them, they glimmer and reflect the light. And again, I don't know the science of light and how that, and the reflecting and that kind of thing. That was a little bit above the kindergarten level that I taught. I did a lot with the science things, like I said, but that was a little beyond their understanding. I mean, some of the things I taught too, were a little bit like space and the distance and time. And obviously that's a little bit harder concepts, but we did some really fun projects, things like that. So again, I just paint, and, once this, I'll let this dry a little bit. I'll look at it, and, again, I think these, didn't find quite the color blue paint I had before. I don't really, this is what I said I used, but it doesn't look like the picture so much. So I just paint, and, then I'll do the edges, and if it has little spots, like this one does not, but like a monarch and stuff, those will get painted on afterwards, and they're all hand painted like that. The next step after this will be the molding. So I'll get back to you when I'm ready for that. So now I'm again painting the brown, which is more kind of the edges of blackish brown on these. So I'm going with the kind of brown because it makes it a little different than a lot of the other butterflies I have. I try to have things in different colors. So this one was, while staying realistic as I can. But this is one of my favorite shapes, I honestly have to say. And again, I'm holding the piece in my hand, I'm painting it. A lot of times I do hold them in my hand while I'm painting. It's higher up. See, the table is a little low. This is the highest table I have, but it's still low to paint. I used to paint upstairs at my bar, and, it would have a bar top and stuff. So if I stood there, that was about the right height. But I don't want to get paint on the counter, and I did a few times, so I don't do that anymore because it's a no-no. So again, I got to do a little bit more in here, which again, holding it is a little bit hard. Let's see, a little bit more brown coming in this way. And basically, I'm painting that. Obviously, I've got to do the body, but then it makes it hard to hold. I'm holding one of the antennas now, which is probably not. Paint the body. Oh, and there's some little brown, looks like little brown spots up here. Because again, they have their little eye spots a lot of times, because that's how they scare away things when they open their wings and flash them. There's a big spot, and animals think it's an eye. So now I'm again painting the brown, which is more kind of the edges of blackish brown on these. So I'm going with the kind of brown because it makes it a little different than a lot of the other butterflies I have. I try to have things in different colors. So this one was, while staying realistic as I can. But this is one of my favorite shapes, I honestly have to say. And again, I'm holding the piece in my hand, I'm painting it. A lot of times I do hold them in my hand while I'm painting. It's higher up. See, the table is a little low. This is the highest table I have, but it's still low to paint. I used to paint upstairs at my bar, and, it would have a bar top and stuff. So if I stood there, that was about the right height. But I don't want to get paint on the counter, and I did a few times, so I don't do that anymore because it's a no-no. So again, I got to do a little bit more in here, which again, holding it is a little bit hard. Let's see, a little bit more brown coming in this way. And basically, I'm painting that. Obviously, I've got to do the body, but then it makes it hard to hold. I'm holding one of the antennas now, which is probably not. Paint the body. Oh, and there's some little brown, looks like little brown spots up here. Because again, they have their little eye spots a lot of times, because that's how they scare away things when they open their wings and flash them. There's a big spot, and animals think it's an eye. Now I finished painting the little butterflies. So now the next step is to mold them so they're not flat. So they're going to have some more dimension to them. So the first thing I do is I paint a water, it's a waterproofing really. It's called Super Sheen. Sometimes actually I do this with water and then I do it with this. It depends on the butterfly. Water actually will help harden it and form it into the shape. But this also waterproofs it too. So sometimes they need to be molded a little bit, in the process of making them because of the shape of it. If that makes any sense. So now, again, I paint that on. While it is dry, once it's absorbed in, I do start to shape and pinch and form the little corners and pinch them so that when it, now it has some dimension. It's not flat on my hand. I don't know how well it, so it has some dimension to it. So again, you kind of pinch and the finish makes it softer before it dries, but then it will harden and make these kind of stiff, which is kind of really what you want. Now, these are both going to be necklace pieces, so they won't be on the same piece. But if I'm trying to make a set, I do try to, line them up side by side and get them molded kind of the same shape. So like the next two will have to be kind of the same, because if they're going to go with a necklace, I want them to match what I've got going on with the top one, the first one. But again, as they get smaller too, this one is about the size of a quarter, I would say. You have to. So now I've got that one. And the little antennas on these are too tiny. Those are going to come off before I finish it, because they're just too tiny to really do anything. So I'm going to try to pinch them away. Really, I'm just pinching them with my fingers, trying to mold them. Now that I've got them like this, I'm going to, and again, I can't really show, I'm going to lie these down side by side and see if they match, if they about match out. They should be about the same width. They should, so if they're going to be a pair of earrings, they're going to be about the same. So that's what I'm doing there. So again, this is for a necklace. So now I have the centerpiece for the necklace, and there'll be one of these on each side to make a 3-piece butterfly necklace. And again, I only cut the 4 butterflies during the demonstration, so that's all I have. I have one other large butterfly. I will have to cut some more. I will probably make a few more, because I will also make earrings to match this. And then if I'm making this piece into a necklace, I'll probably make a 5 butterfly necklace. So I'll cut out the butterflies for those and for the both pair of earrings all at the same time. And that's going to wrap it up for now. The next part is I have to attach the hardware. So the last step of the earrings, of course, is assembling it. So I'm going to put the wires and so forth on that. So first of all, this is a matched pair of earrings, so I want it to be the opposite of that. So the hole needs to be in this corner of the earring. So I turn it upside down, and I do put it on the edge of this board because it's molded. And then I have to punch the hole through the earring. And then once I have that, I have my hardware here, which is a jump ring, which is, again, like a key ring. And this is a number 3 connector. That was what I call it. It looks like it's shaped like the number 3. And this is what I use to connect the hardware. So first I have to open this up a tiny bit. Hold it from the other end. Get it through the hole I've made there. Tighten it. Before I tighten it completely, I will usually match it up with the other earring and make sure I have it going at the same angle, which it isn't right now. So they're going to dangle the same. In other words, I want them to face the same. So like that. So now I can tighten that. And then I just have to add the wire.
So now I have the jump ring. I open it up with my fingernail and the pliers, which again, I don't always have fingernails long enough to do that. Or it's very hard on my fingernails, I should say. I break a lot of them. Oops. No, so much for that. Luckily, I have one more here on the table. That happens a lot. Lose the pieces. They don't always cooperate. Again, the butterfly jewelry is finished. I'm wearing it here because, like I've said, I can't wear butterfly jewelry, but I'm taking you from start to finish on how I created and how I came up with the patterns and so forth for my butterfly jewelry. And I really loved, making that, and that did really rekindle my passion for a while because there were so many different butterflies. Like I said, as a teacher, we studied a lot of butterflies, so I had these books on identifying butterflies and so forth. So those were what I used to make my patterns and so forth to try to make them realistic. But after a while, that still wasn't quite satisfying me because I also used to carve a lot of bird pictures and other, wildlife scenes and so forth. So I was, starting to lose the passion a little bit there, wanting to branch out into other things. So I did come up with some other things based on birds. Again, I've told stories before about how my mother really inspired my bird collection. So going back to her bird book again, which I'll share with you next week, and the stories about what inspired my new bird collection, no longer the book covers, but the new collection and the direction I went with that, which is more decor. I would say home decor or wall hangings. And then from there, I went on to create also some wildlife things because that was also something I used to create on my book covers and so forth. So that will be coming up the following week. So those are all things to stay tuned for. If you're interested in my products, you are a nature lover, you want, eco-friendly products and so forth like that, and no nature lovers, then hang out here and come check out my things some more. That's going to wrap it up for now. Have a great day. Bye.